ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants and guests. Today, more than ever, I think that space in Europe has become an established powerhouse. Just consider that in less than 3 decades, the European Union has developed world-class space assets like Galileo, like Copernicus, and we hope in the recent future Iris Square for secure connectivity. Assets that they come with data, with services, with applications, and this is very important for Greece, able to contribute to the safety, to the security, and definitely to the well-functioning of the European economy. In parallel with all these systems, space systems, we achieved to have a space industry, a European space industry, highly competitive internationally. And I have to say that Greece, timidly, the next 10 years, is also present. I really urge not only the civil part of the space, but also the defense part of the space in Greece to come with more presence and more innovation. It is needed, and not only the windows, but also the doors are open, as said this morning by the minister. The third element where we really could be proud about space in Europe is the fact that space, the last years also, is developing synergies with defense. I'm more than 25 years in the space field. I'm more a space lady, but I have to say that for many, many years, we work under the motto, civil systems under civil controls. I remember in 90s or 2000, when they asked us about defense applications in Galileo, we tried to really change the subject matter. And now, we think, we are convinced that we can go ahead with synergies. Synergies does not mean militarization of the space. We're not talking about an osmosis over here. We're just talking about an intelligent blending of the two ecosystems, the intelligence, the needs, the funds, everything that you can have in order to get the best result out of these two worlds. And it is time to do it. It is time for defense to consider space as a key enabler. It is the area, it is the field, it is the domain that could be seen as a game changer of modern security and defense strategies. You are talking about the 2030 strategy, the minister announced it. There is no possibility to go ahead without having for a second the space in your mind and the potential and the perspective that it could bring. We see from what I have heard this morning, and it's still music in my ears, as Mr. Doko said, that space is definitely used by the military community for secure communications, for intelligence, for surveillance, for positioning, navigation, timing. We can see the trend from everywhere in Europe and worldwide. Space and defense are increasingly intertwined. And space is considered, finally, if I may say, as a strategic domain. Yet, we don't have to be naive. We don't have to hide the reality, because we face more and more a space which is really not only congested with all these thousands of satellites, but also, and very important for the defense ecosystem, contested, with an increasing number of hostile activities. Let me, in a few seconds, set the scene. Threats in space are developing at fast pace, in a complex manner, and involve a large variety of factors. We have lone individuals, we have hostile state actors, or from time to time, their beautiful and very active proxies. In a volatile geopolitical environment, the one that we live currently in our continent, but also a number of crises, considering that we are living on a perma-crisis environment, we see the space assets are potential targets for adversaries willing either to create a damage, it could be a societal damage, it could be a security one, it could be an economical one, or even they can go ahead in order simply to demonstrate their power. We all remember what happened the day before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We all remember that the night before that invasion, the greatest telecommunication network, Viasat, just with one code, a simple code, without thousands of missiles, without guns, they managed to bring down entire parts of this telecommunication network used also by the Ukrainian army. For the ones, and I think that I'm addressing in such an audience, that was the first signal that the war was about to come, and it came the day after. The European Union, therefore, needs to be up to this challenging context. If our political goal, it is to enhance the Union's posture, to defend our interests, and to protect our democratic values, we have to become an assertive space power. But in order to leave the words and go to the actions, a big first milestone came 2 years ago with the strategic compass, and then followed for the first ever in the chronics of the European, from time to time, bureaucratic environment, the space strategy for security and defense. With such a strategy, last March, I think, 2023, what we did, or what our political masters did, first of all, once forever, they acknowledged the relevance of space in the field of security and defense. A great loud acknowledgement. Then they decided to accelerate the breakdown of silos, taboo, and cultures of the past century. And last but not least, they addressed all the vulnerabilities of these sectors and decided to go ahead with concrete actions in order to handle them properly. The strategy was seen as a paradigm shift in order, first of all, to enhance the protection of our systems. We said that they are vulnerable, in particular vis-à-vis the cyber attacks, so they have to increase their resilience. Second pillar, they have, and we have, to strengthen and promote and foster the use of systems, data, and applications by the security and defense community. Number 3, strengthening the capacity of the Union not only to detect the threats, but also to analyze and respond to these threats. And last but not least, because we are not alone in this world, go ahead with great, solid, and forced international cooperation. In space, there is no way to do business alone. By definition, by nature, by design, we have to foster the cooperation. In the next 2 minutes, I will try really to make a zoom in the major elements of these 4 pillars. And I know that there are a number of people who should talk after me, so I will really to be as quick and as concise as possible. So, for the first pillar, increase the resilience, the most important point is the call for unity and responsibility in all stakeholders in Europe in order to establish an EU-wide resilience security framework. How it will take place? By Commission's proposal in the next months, we're also affected by the European elections, of EU space law. It's the first time in the European Union that we will go ahead with a regulation, so applicable as such to everybody, with a number of minimum level of risk management rules in terms of safety, in terms of security, and in terms of sustainability. To whom it will be applied? To everybody in Europe, public or private, but also to companies or actors from third countries when they decided to do business in Europe. And this is very important for establishing a level playing field and provide to our companies, to our industrial ecosystem, a competitive advantage. Then, with regard to the second pillar, to promote the more dual-use services to defense community through the EU space programs, I'm proud to say that we don't start from the scratch. We have, very briefly, the Galileo program, who is offering the public regulated service, the PRS. Actually, European Union member states, they are in a position to test it and in 6 to 8 months to use it. Very important for our army in terms of positioning, navigation, and timing. Then, for secure connectivity, with the Iris Square, I'm responsible for that program, so I can tell you that as from 2027, the European Union, including and in particular governmental authorities and the army, will be in a position to use secure communications, and we know what does it mean for a country like Greece. And last but not least, if we turn to the Earth observation, we are working on a potential governmental service. We're in the very first steps, but we're really convinced that in the next 2 to 3 years, a real EU Earth observation governmental service will be available for our governments. We have to keep going with this dynamic trend. First of all, systematically, by design, introduce the governmental needs, including the defense, in each and every system, data or applications that we conceive with EU funds. This is a must. Number 2, we have to promote the technological stream. You said it, and I echo each and every word of the participants so far. We have to invest more in capabilities, more in capacities, more in sovereign technologies in order to better monitor and act in space and from the Earth for the space. Last but not least, in this particular field, we need to maintain our competitive industrial ecosystem. And we have in space, and I think this is already the case in the defense ecosystem, two families: the well-established, the ones that for 40, 50 years they exist, they are big, and we're proud about them. And we have the so-called new space, the startups, the SMEs, that they bring a new culture in the way of making business, with innovation, with high speed. They have to be not protected, because here we're not talking about protection. They don't need to be protected. They need to get the appropriate tools, funding, or service or contracts in order to demonstrate that they are also adults, that they have such a capability, and that they can demonstrate their potential everywhere. Greece has a potential. I see it from Brussels, I see it from Athens today. I'm particularly glad to see how good we are as Greece in the space, in the defense field. Yesterday, they announced the results of the EDF, and proudly, I have to say, I see the extraordinary record of the European, or the Greek posture in the European environment. I would like to see not only the Greek participation in the space, but most important, how we can blending defense and space in the Greek paradox environment, as said by Mr. Georgiakis. And we have to do it. Very important, the skills. You said it several times. I will just echo that we need to mobilize all our efforts in order not only to have skills, but to maintain the skills. For us, skilled workforce is the backbone of our industry, of our public sector, and for our future. 2 words about the international cooperation, particular focus on EU-US, EU-NATO. We have, for many, many years, great cooperation with US on Copernicus and Galileo, even on the military side. We do consider that by developing sovereign capacity, we will make our partnership with the US even stronger, based on a mutual interest. If we want a great partnership, both parties should be at the same level. This is the partnership. And then, very timidly, we start discussions and cooperation with NATO already since last year. Both organizations, deliberately, we decided to deepen our cooperation on space based on the rule of reciprocity, as always is the case, and very important for NATO and for the European Union, while preserving our respective autonomy. There is already a great cooperation and a great potential for mutual beneficial cooperation in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we said it, you know it from everywhere, Europe is at war. Nobody wants it, but everybody should face it. And this is the what it takes moment of Europe as a space power that we are living. We will not be secured on Earth if we do not protect and control what is happening in the outer space. It is therefore now that we should break the silos between space defense and security. It is the time that we have to take bold measures to be more sovereign and able to defend our security interest in and from the space. in a sentence, space should be at the service of defense as the new strategic frontier. Thank you very much. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.